Hello, Facebook friends, members of CHP, supporters, welcome to another edition of CHP Talks. I'm here today with CHP leader Rod Taylor, and we're going to be talking about whether it should be illegal to obtain illegal firearms illegally. What do you think? We also want to talk a little bit about the shooting that happened almost 2 weeks ago, and that's where we'll start the conversation with a Speaks Out that Rod wrote last week. Rod, do you want to just give us a bit of a recap and take us to where we are today?
Well, of course, we had the terrible tragedy in Nova Scotia. A man, you can't really say he went berserk because he planned this out ahead of time, very meticulously, with the police car, mock-up police car that fooled many people, including, I believe, some of the RCMP. He was able to operate in the guise with a police uniform. And we don't know exactly what happened. There's still a lot of details to come out, and some of them we may never know. But he burnt down houses and killed, as far as we know, at least 23 people, including an unborn baby, and a police officer and a teacher and many other, every single soul precious to their circle of friends and family. But the deception that he used is just phenomenal. We hope we never see anything like that again. It is certainly instructive to us to know when people don't know what's going on. It's very difficult to respond, and I think that is true even for the RCMP. We all agree that there should have probably been an alert gone out, but it wasn't until sometime next morning that they really knew what was taking place. The confusion, burning buildings, and all that was very troubling. But here's what's happening: is that the Prime Minister is latching onto the grief and confusion and hurt that Canadians are feeling, and we all felt very deeply for the hurting people in Nova Scotia who've lost friends and loved ones. That he's using that as an excuse to grab guns. Again, the Liberals have been good at that over the years, good at it or bad at it, however you want to put it. And the whole idea that you can eliminate murder by taking away the tool used in murder is already on the wrong track. People, the old saying is, guns don't kill people, people kill people. And it's the misuse of any tool, whether it's a gun, a shovel, an automobile, an axe, knife. People have committed murder over thousands of years, the history of mankind, and it's the evil in man's heart that needs to be dealt with, not the external device that's used.
Yes, we can't lock up the gun in jail and, charge it with however many counts of murder. It doesn't act. The gun is only in the hands of a murderer is a gun a tool for killing and destruction. In the hands of a target shooter, a sport shooter, an Olympic sports shooter, a hunter, it becomes something that can be used to entertain in terms of sport, in terms of target shooting, sharpen the senses of a person, and in terms of hunting can be a source of revenue, a source of food for those who hunt, but take that same weapon and use it against another human being, and it's murder. And that's what we have to get at, is that value of human life. And when human life is devalued, whatever implement is used, it will cause untold suffering.
And a couple of things about this. Of course, the right to own arms. First of all, we're talking about private property. So Trudeau wants to confiscate private property that people have bought and paid for. And it's a matter of our right to conduct our own affairs. Certainly self-defense, another extremely important aspect of firearms ownership. They're for hunting, sporting, and self-defense, defending your own self, which is a God-given right, and even a right and duty to protect and defend your family and your home. And
Yeah. And
go ahead.
if I can just jump in there a second, we have to remember that someone like our Prime Minister and members of cabinet, et cetera, and who will be voting on a bill like this, Justin Trudeau will probably have armed guards around him for the rest of his life.
Yes.
He's a prime minister now, and he'll be a former prime minister for the rest of his life. And so, and his dad actually carried a weapon. He had a concealed carry permit because he was concerned about people potentially wanting to take his life. And so that's that aspect of self-defense. If we suggested that the armed guards guarding our members of parliament and guarding our especially our members of parliament should not be allowed to carry weapons anymore, we'd sound kind of silly. Of course they're supposed to be carrying weapons or guarding. Well, we're people too, and we should be allowed to guard ourselves as well. And that's basically the argument for the ownership of firearms in the first place.
And to use this shooting in Nova Scotia as an excuse to ban certain firearms, I guess there's 7 classes or 7 types of firearms that Mr. Trudeau is talking about confiscating, banning and confiscating, banning the use of. This shooter in Nova Scotia used a shotgun. I mean, the same, probably kind of a shotgun that is used for duck hunting across the country. He used the gun that he took from the female police officer that he gunned down. And we were told, I think some of these details are hard to access, but we're told that he used her gun. And so he did not have a firearms possession certificate himself. So even for him to carry and possess a firearm is already illegal. And so lots of times in Canada, it seems like our government sometimes feels they need to make laws for things that are already illegal. It's illegal to kill people. It's illegal to misuse a firearm. And so just taking away the guns that belong to law-abiding citizens is not the answer. We need to get back to God, get back to a sense of righteousness and morality, a respect for human life. And, that will go a lot further than taking away the tool that a wicked person has used to end lives.
Absolutely. Yeah. That respect to life, it's got to begin right at conception. It's got to go through to the end of life. And if our government set the example by outlawing killing in those instances, maybe it would have a trickle-down effect. And that's what we need, is that respect for life. And let's not blame the weapon for the crime.
Yeah. There's another old saying, when guns are outlawed, only outlaws will have guns. And, every time in the past that tyrannical governments have begun disarming the populace, it ends up in a real dictatorship, where they have taken away people's rights to self-defense. And then the government can send troops in and, just take over communities. That may seem far-fetched, but look what they're doing with this coronavirus and using it as an excuse for all kinds of impositions of government dictates. So we want to be careful. We do not want to surrender our rights to private property and our rights to self-defense to a tyrannical despot who is flexing his muscles right now and using the tragedy in Nova Scotia as an excuse.
Using a tragedy for a political goal is something we've written about before, about this government in terms of economics. And if that's what they do in terms of this shooting in Nova Scotia, shame on them, and shame on us if we don't learn from it either. Well, it's not a particularly happy note to leave us on, but we do hope you'll join us for another edition of CHP Talks next week. Much to think about in these times, and we hope you'll join us again.